What's up, everybody? This is Mr. Howard, and we are back with E3 Day 2. We're going to be recapping the Microsoft and the Ubisoft conferences that took place. Got a lot of information to cover, so we're going to go ahead and do that. And just going to put on this UFC gameplay in the background, just so we have something to watch and we're not looking at a blank screen, okay? So we'll start off with Microsoft, and they started the show by talking about the new Xbox One Slim or Xbox One S. The image they showed was a white Xbox One, but I'm not sure if that is the only color it will come in. I don't really know if it really has any upgrades other than that it's smaller and thinner. And just kind of nicer to look at, I guess, is the big, the big addition for buying that. So, that's something. I'm not personally an Xbox player, so I'm not sure how the actual Xbox fans are reacting. And if you happen to have an Xbox or be an Xbox gamer, feel free to let me know what you think about that in the comments down below. They also talked about the Xbox Play Anywhere, which basically allows them to play games on Windows 10 for free, assuming that they purchased it for their Xbox. And there's a bunch of games they talked about that will include this. I'm not going to go through them all, but again, links are always down below for all the information if you want to check it out. One of the bigger games that they have been focusing on in the past, many years was that of the Gears of War franchise. And they started talking about Gears of War 4, which looks really good. The graphics are spot on, and it looks like there's some new characters there, although the main character from the from the other Gears of War games is making an appearance to some extent. Again, I got to apologize. I am not an Xbox player, 360 or Xbox One. I have not played the Gears games, so I don't really know much about them. But it looks pretty good, and it looks like the fans were pretty excited for it. So, I'm going to give this hype 7 out of 10. I'm not personally going to play it because I don't have an Xbox. I don't plan on getting one in the future. But I think if you do have an Xbox, most people will probably be picking this title up. Moving on, we have they covered Killer Instinct, which is their famous fighting game that kind of seems to combat maybe like Street Fighter or I don't know, some of the other fighting games that have been out there. And they did make note that there's a special character in the game, General Ram, I believe is how you pronounce it, who is from the Gears of War series, which I thought was pretty cool. And the roster is still yet to be determined, yet to be shown. But hopefully the fans will be happy. I didn't get to see much from the game, so my hype level is at a 4 out of 10 on this one. But I have to say, the Killer Instinct game, when they initially released it, did look pretty cool. And even though it's not really a big established fighting series, or at least not yet, it definitely looks like it's meant to compete with the other fighting games that we love and hold so dear. Moving on, we got Forza Horizon 3, which will be coming out in September. I believe it was September 27th of this year. Again, it looks really good. I don't play Forza, but there were some really cool looking cars, and they had a pretty good variety. I saw a gameplay demo they did on stage where they had 4 different players all using different platforms to play on. So there was someone using an Xbox One with an Xbox controller, someone was using a PC with an Xbox controller, someone was using a PC with a mouse, and someone was using a full steering wheel to play, and they all were able to jump into each other's games and just kind of have fun with it. So I'm going to give that a 5 out of 10 for the hype, but if you are a Forza fan, I'm sure that will be way higher. They also talked about Final Fantasy 15, which the demo seemed to go. I don't know if it was how the game is meant to be played. Not a huge Final Fantasy fan, but it looked as if the person playing the demo was having trouble, kind of figuring out what it what he was really supposed to do, or maybe just having trouble completing the part of the demo he was showing off. Him and 3 other players, I couldn't quite tell if they were people or NPCs, but they were all attacking a giant Titan looking creature, and at the end they eventually cut off his arm and seemed to have disposed the correct fashion. So I would say on the epic scale, it was probably pretty high, but on the hype scale, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. Not really looking forward to that from what I saw in the demo. Hopefully they will show more stuff, and maybe like a legitimate trailer and gameplay trailer would help, kind of spice up the hype and the interest in this game. We also talked about Battlefield 1 again, very briefly, but they did mention that Battlefield 1 will be coming to Xbox players about a week early. I believe it will be coming October 13th. And that is cool. It's good for them. I'm not a super big Battlefield fan. If you watched my day one recap of E3 when we talked about Bethesda and EA, I did cover Battlefield 1, and I do plan on playing it, but I really couldn't care less about getting early access to it or not. It's just not really on my radar to that extent. But it is good for Xbox fans who will enjoy that, and I thought it was cool. They were partnering just to kind of help and give some fans a little bit of a leg up on getting used to the gameplay and getting into the story and whatnot, so that looks good. They also announced at the conference a few new features for Xbox One. They talked about how in a new update there was going to be a Cortana voice command system where you can basically use your Xbox by speaking to Cortana. And I'm assuming that comes with an array of features and commands, but they didn't really go into it too much. They also mentioned that background music is going to be a new thing for gameplay, where you can be playing a game and also be running music in the background. I'm not sure how the Xbox works and what apps they have, but I do know on my PS4 I can just launch Spotify and play music in the background of any game I'm playing, which I do regularly, just to kind of make it more intense or more fun, or just to keep some sound going in there and some rhythm for my gameplay. So that is definitely something that I'm glad they're bringing to the Xbox One, if they didn't have something like that already. And I'm sure a lot of fans will feel the same way. And lastly, they talked about Arena, which is kind of like a tournament mode, I guess, which allows you to, kind of create tournaments for you and your friends to play a game in and compete in. It can also be on a grander scale for you can join tournaments with people all around the country, all around the world, in specific games, specific game types, I believe. And again, they didn't go too in depth, but it did look pretty cool. I am a huge tournament fan, if you know me, and just being able to see that is what they are going for, it makes me happy, because tournaments are fun to set up, and they're also really fun to take part in. And it's something a lot of people, I'm sure, will feel the same way about as me. They also announced cross gameplay between Xbox and Windows 10. as well as the iOS and Android platforms. And they showcased Minecraft, where two people were demoing multiplayer, and one person was playing on an iPad. The other player was playing on a Windows 10 tablet, I believe. And assuming you have bought the game, you can play, single player or co-op multiplayer on your iOS devices, your Android devices, Windows 10 computers, or your Xbox One. We also saw kind of a short trailer for custom Xbox One controllers, and that was something that I really wish Sony would do. I love seeing custom controllers. The way it's set up is basically you get to go to their website and just kind of choose the patterns or the colors and where you want them and what you want your controller to look like. You have pretty much full control over the design, and they will make it for you. I'm sure the prices may differ depending on what you want to put in and on your controller. But it's a cool feature. It's even if you don't want to do it or if you don't have the money to do it, it's good to know that you have the option to get some custom controllers and really make your own feeling for when you're playing, and especially if you have other people in the house or you have friends that will come over and play often, you can kind of have your own designated controller that really makes it feel like yours. And they also talked about a bunch of indie games. I'm not going to list them all, but a couple notable ones were Cuphead, Everspace, For the King, Raiders, and, of course, Outlast. Outlast is a game I loved when it first came out. I also loved the Whistleblower DLC, and that is a tremendous, tremendous game. So Outlast 2 is going to be hopefully even better. But even if it just kind of stays on par with the first one, we can be sure to, be playing a pretty good game. We also got a nice short little gameplay description / demo of indie game, which is called We Happy Few. One of my friends brought this game to my attention recently, and I was immediately intrigued because it basically, it kind of had almost like a BioShocky feel. I don't know if that's just because the time period it takes place in, but it kind of looked like an indie version of a BioShock game. And it's basically, it takes place in the 60s, I believe, and the main character, or basically everyone in the town, the city, the world, I'm not sure to what extent it is, take pills that are called, I think, joy pills or something. So basically everyone is kind of like crazy, happy clown people, and it's because they're taking these pills every day to make them, act really strange and really happy and really, kind of like if you ever see the Joker and the Batman movies, comics, games, he basically would use like laughing gas, and they're all just kind of really ridiculously laughing, and then they die, of course. But these people are kind of to a lesser extent really happy, and they still communicate normally, but you can definitely tell there's something off. And you, as the main character, decide not to take your joy pills, and when they find out, basically the entire town starts coming after you, and we don't really know what else happens in the story, but we do know there's some form of combat. We got to see the main character grab a lead pipe and try and defend himself with it, and he's basically just being chased by everyone, and you have to escape the building, the town, the city, the country, the world, whatever the scale of it is. And I am incredibly, incredibly intrigued and excited about this. It's one of the few indie games that really doesn't look like an indie game, and I'm sure it will be successful. We also saw the basically, if you have played the Witcher games, especially with the Witcher 3, you would have seen the in-game card game called Gwent, and the developers saw that the fans and players were so ecstatic about the game and played so much of it, they decided to make Gwent a standalone game, They said they're going to be introducing some kind of a campaign for it, and it's going to be multiplayer, and there's going to be just it's going to be a full-fledged game by itself. They said that'll be coming out in September sometime, and I'm not really sure if that is the what we're gonna the extent of what we're gonna get from The Witcher. But even if it is, it's something that I'm looking forward to, and I would give the hype a 7 out of 10 on that. That is also a cross-platform multiplayer game. So if you're playing on one system, I believe you can play on the other systems listed with friends as well. And moving on from there, we got to see Tekken 7. We just got to see a little bit of a cinematic. I don't think we saw much gameplay, maybe a very tiny bit, if at all. I don't think we did, though. And basically, we see Heihachi kind of like meditating, and who else but Akuma from the Street Fighter and says it is basically his duty to kill Heihachi. And Heihachi disagrees, and they get into a skirmish going back and forth, and Akuma overpowers him, or what it looks like he overpowers him, and Heihachi just kind of says, what power is this, you demon? And talks about how, this is power he's never seen before, and then you kind of get to see them getting ready to like clash again, and cuts to black. So I don't know why Akuma is in there. I thought it was going to be Street Fighter. I'm sorry, I thought it was going to be Tekken X Street Fighter. I think the game that already came out was Street Fighter X Tekken, if I'm not mistaken. So I was assuming they were going to do Tekken X Street Fighter, if that makes sense. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I was thinking. But apparently, after doing some more research, apparently it's just Akuma as like a guest in the game for some reason. So it's still cool. Don't know if I'm gonna play it much. I might rent it or borrow it from a friend if anyone has it when that comes out. All that we know is that it will be coming out in 2017, and that's about the extent of what they showed us. We also saw Dead Rising 4, which always looks pretty fun. If you haven't seen Frank Castle in the Dead Rising games, he basically comes up with these random contraptions and weapons and ways to kill zombies. And he does it in a way that's pretty funny and entertaining, and looks pretty fun to play. I've never played a Dead Rising game, but I've seen a ton of gameplay. And if you like zombies, and you like gore, and you like comedy, those are some things that you should look into this game for. So I'll give it a 7 out of 10 on the hype scale. Not going to play most of these games because they're either Xbox exclusives or I just might not have time. But, it looks good, and, I'm sure a lot of people are excited. We also saw Scalebound, which will be coming out sometime next year. And this was really kind of like a Monster Hunter style. It's like a multiplayer Monster Hunter kind of game. I don't really know how else to describe it. But you saw the main character with his like pet dragon. And when I say pet dragon, I don't mean like a baby pet dragon. I mean like a pretty big friggin' dragon. And he had 3 like friends or partners in crime that also had their own individual dragons, which all helped them. And altogether, they were fighting a huge boss that looks kind of like a crab or a spider or something. And eventually they took it out. But it was kind of the grand scale Titan kind of battles that we've seen in a couple other games. And, it looked good. I'm intrigued. I want to see more. I want to know what the story's about. I want to know how much of that kind of fighting is in the game and how big of a role it plays. I'll give it a 7 out of 10 on the hype scale as well. And, of course, if you want to see more of that or any of the other games mentioned in this video, feel free to just look down in the description, and I have links down there for everything that we are talking about. We also got a quick gameplay demo of an indie game called Sea of Thieves, which basically showed different teams of people piloting their own pirate ships, and going to islands and finding treasure, and basically coming into contact with other pirates, which happen to be the other players, and trying to sink each other's ships, and it seemed pretty cool. I don't know how much stuff you could really do with that. But hopefully they build off of it and make it a bigger deal in the future. We also got to see State of Decay 2, which is not something I know a lot about, and I'm going to hold off on talking about that because I don't know anything about it. Feel free to look that up by yourself. Next up was Halo Wars 2, which was basically kind of the end of the game announcements of the night. They announced it will be coming out on February 21st, and it looks pretty big, pretty much like an all-out war kind of thing, like you'd expect. Again, not going to be picking it up, so I'm going to give it a hype 6 out of 10. But I'm sure if you're a Halo fan, you will love this. To end the night, this is kind of something that intrigues me. They announced Project Scorpio, which basically is going to be a new version of the Xbox One. And when I say that, I don't mean it's going to be the next version of the Xbox One. It's going to be a new version that runs alongside the Xbox One. And to understand what I'm saying, they basically showcase this, the current Xbox One, and the Xbox One Slim that I mentioned earlier, and basically said that all three are going to be sold and used alongside each other. If you buy an Xbox game, you can use it and play it on any of the three systems. You can play with friends on any of the three systems. So they're basically just three different models of the same console. And Project Scorpio is meant to really enhance gaming, is kind of the point they were trying to make. I think they were using it for more VR stuff, more 4K gaming, more processing for developers, and basically just to make games look a lot better. From what I heard, I think it looks like it's going to be coming out sometime next year. But that's really all I got from them. So overall, I think the Microsoft conference was pretty good. I'm not a big Microsoft fan, so you have to excuse my bias on some of these games that I'm just not going to be playing. But overall, I'll give it a 72% out of 100, and I think they did pretty good. So why don't we move on to Ubisoft? So basically, I mean, there were a ton of games at the conference throughout the day, but Ubisoft didn't have a lot. Now, I have to say, basically the conference was, I would say it was very good overall, and I will explain why in a minute, but it was definitely short and to the point. So first they started off with a game that I have been waiting to see and talk about and experience, and that is Ghost Recon Wildlands. And for those of you who have played Ghost Recon games, or if you've played The Division or seen The Division recently, it's a co-op open world game where it looks like, at least in the demo, the main goal of the game or the mission is to take to find big bad guys and to either kill them or extract them for information and put them in prison. And you're facing drug cartels and murderers and psychopaths and just some really, really bad people. So that was the small gist of the game. But it is also important to know that the gameplay is incredible. So what I mean by that is you really get to work together with your friends, your teammates, whatever that may be. And because of that, it really makes the game, you know, it really makes it kind of like random every mission you do. Like you can do things stealthily. You can go in guns blazing. You can do it really any way you or your team wants to. So basically, we start off with two people going in and getting some information from look like an enemy base. You hack the computer and you get to find out where this big bad guy is hiding. You then get into a helicopter and move closer to where the bad guy's base is. Meet up with your friends. Go in stealthily, at least in this case, taking out all of the guards and hostile enemies along the way. And if basically they were trying to extract this big bad guy, who basically was killing people and apparently worked for someone bigger and better. So they do this in a really orderly fashion, which I really highly recommend watching the gameplay video that they put up. I will link that below. And seeing all of the different ways you could go about this, I was like even in my head thinking about how I would play the game. What ended up happening was the guy became alerted to their presence and fled, and like a huge car chase ensued. And one of the team players went back to the helicopter, while the others got on bikes or in trucks and chased the bad guy. And eventually they run him off the road, pick him up, extract him in the helicopter, and move on, with their day and with their mission. And I can't wait to see how big the game actually is, but when they say open world, it definitely looked very open world. I don't know if it's open world by mission or if every mission takes place in one world. Kind of like, I don't know if it's going to be like Metal Gear or if it's going to be more like a Fallout or something, but super excited about this. I'm hyped, 9 out of 10. They announced it's going to be coming out March 7th of next year, which is a little ways away, but I am willing to wait, hoping that it will be one of the contenders for Game of the Year next year. Moving on, we got to see a trailer that looked literally just like The Division, really serious and like bleak and talking about all the bad things happening in the world. And then all of a sudden, they ask the question, who can stop this? And we get to see the Coon. And if you don't know who the Coon is, it is Cartman from South Park, and they were showcasing South Park and the fractured butt hole. Not the fractured butthole, the fractured butt hole. They announced it will be coming out December 6th, and if you pre-order the game, you will get a copy of South Park: The Stick of Truth, which was the first game, for free, which I think is great for anyone who hasn't gotten to play the first game, although if you're a fan of the show, you definitely should have played the game by now. It's amazing. I'm hyped 10 out of 10 for this game. They showed a cinematic trailer and then a gameplay. Did they show game? I think they showed a little bit of gameplay, but it was mostly cinematic. And it's just classic South Park. It's hilarious. They were basically doing Coon and Friends from from a couple of the South Park episodes, spoofing the Avengers and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it was pretty funny. So we're gonna be looking forward to that, and that is definitely a game that I will be playing later in the year. And I have to say it was probably one of the most anticipated games of E3 so far. I'm not going to go as far as to say it's the most hyped or excited in my opinion, but it's definitely up there. Moving on, we got to see a little bit of the actual Division. They showed some of the next DLC, which is Underground, and they explained there's going to be a bunch more expansions and DLC in the future. And that is all good and well. I don't know how much I'm going to be playing of the Division in the near future. It seems like a game where you really need to have friends to play or to really have fun playing. So it's really dependent on whether or not I can get some people together to play or not. I got about halfway through the game and just kind of stopped playing because I had other stuff to do. And there's so many games and so many things that I want to get to. I'm not sure if I will and how long it will take for me to get to that game again. But it did look good, so I will give it a 7 out of 10 on the hype scale. We got to see a couple other things. I'm just going to run through a few before we get to the end. We got to see Eagle Flight, which was basically a capture the flag indie game where you are eagles trying to collect a prey in the middle of the map and bring it back to your nest, your base. And it looked really cool. We also saw a Star Trek VR game, and we got to see For Honor. For Honor is a medieval kind of game where there are three major factions from what I can see. That being the Vikings, the Samurai, and the knights, I guess. Like medieval knights. I don't really know what to say. But that will be coming out February 14th of next year. And this is another game I highly recommend watching the cinematic trailer and the gameplay trailers. We get a little bit of an insight into the story behind the game. And we get to see a lot of gameplay where we see the Vikings fighting the samurai. So that was pretty cool. They also announced Watch Dogs 2, which I was a big fan of Watch Dogs 1, and I definitely plan on getting Watch Dogs 2. It comes out November 15th, and I am hyped 8 out of 10 for this game. Check out the gameplay, guys. It was really cool. You basically hack everything in the game and in the world. I believe it takes place in San Francisco, which is a pretty cool area to traverse. And I have to say, overall, Ubisoft is going to get an 85% on, on my scale. I have to say, it's not easy to be the best conference of E3, and Ubisoft pretty narrowly pulled it off so far. So tomorrow we're going to be covering the Sony and the Nintendo conferences, and we will see what they got to show. I have heard that Sony has a lot of stuff to stuff, so I'm hoping that is the case. I want to thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below. If you want to see anything I talked about in this video, links are in the description, and I will see you guys real soon.